Hello, welcome to our August webinar on building your tech stack. We're going to give people another minute or two to join us here before we get started. If you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll answer them as we go. Our kind of goal here with our webinar today is to really talk through different elements of building a tech stack, what it means, what makes sense, some of the best practices behind there. And so as you hear things come up, or if you have any questions on any particular items, please let us know. So we'll give people another minute or two to join before we get going here. Our goal here at CPA Group is to do these webinars every month on different topics. We'll talk about our next one next month. In September, and what we were going to learn about in that month at the end of this presentation here. So stay tuned for that. And then also all these are going to be recorded on our YouTube channel. So if you want to come back to this another time, or if you have to cut out early, they will be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CPA Group. It's there. We'll also post it on our social media and our website as well for you to view that. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Today we are talking about building the right tech stack. What makes the most sense for your business? What is the best options that you can do? Things to consider. We find that a lot of companies will implement some different technologies as they grow or find things that they like or see out there. But then you have a bunch of disparate systems that may not be working on top of each other and may lead to problems in the long term. So we will go ahead and get started here. We'll make the presentation go full. Again, any questions you have, please put them in the chat box. We'll answer them throughout our discussion or presentation today. So we'll go ahead and get on here. Our agenda, or what we want to talk about, is first talking about the connected financial web. What makes having a good tech stack and really feasible is having it be connected. And so we'll talk about what that is. We'll kind of talk through an example of what one theoretical company's tech stack may look like and how they interact and work with each other. We'll talk through what your tech stack is, what our best practices, what things that you may need to consider in your tech stack, and then we'll talk a little about what our tech stack is and why we chose some of the softwares we did. A little bit about us. My name is Joshua Lance. I am a certified public accountant and managing director of Lance CPA Group. We are the small firm for big dreams. We are a CPA firm here based in Chicago, but work with clients across the country with their accounting, tax, bookkeeping, payroll, and other needs. Our kind of core belief is that we believe your small business is important business. I think a lot of small businesses particularly get overlooked when it comes to people trying to help them. And we take our expertise working with large companies. I spent 7 years at a large public accounting firm and then worked at an ultra high net family office and take all that knowledge and use that to help small businesses grow their business. We exist to help your business thrive regardless of size, no matter what it takes. So our goal in partnering with the companies that we work with is really to make their business better than it was when they started with us. And so we want to make sure that they thrive and make sure that they meet the goals and objectives that they're looking for in their business and be a partner with them in that. And we don't feel like we're doing our job unless yours is getting easier. So by working with us, we want to make sure that our work and what we do with our companies is actually making their lives easier. And if it's not, then something must be amiss there. So we want to make sure that if we're doing our job, that means your job is going to be easier. And then just a little about us. We're a certified public accounting firm built to help small business owners and entrepreneurs grow and manage their businesses, and consider us a stakeholder whose number one interest is helping you succeed and making your life a little easier along the way. So like I said, we do these webinars every month, different topics, and we'll have these recorded so you can look back at them at a future time. So talking about the connected web, with the way technology has really developed here in the last few years, 3 to 5 years, there are now so many more applications and things that businesses can use to manage and run their business. But not only that, to have those systems talk and work with each other. Whereas before that, that type of technology or that type of way of having those systems in place were really kind of reserved for the larger companies that had the means to put the money down to spend money to have those systems created for them and customized to them. And now with the way applications are being developed and the way they work with each other, that technology is now kind of come down to the small business level. So we really kind of believe in that, and when we work with our clients, we want to make sure that when they're choosing systems or working with systems, that they are working with each other, and they're not just isolated systems that require the double entry or then prone to errors. So that is really kind of our goal here. And so we want to show a quick video here. This is by one of the softwares we'll be talking about later, Xero, and kind of their belief in what the connected web looks like for a small business. So that's a little bit a video talking about the connected web and what that works like and how that will impact the business. The beauty now with cloud-based accounting and our cloud-based systems is the ability to connect with our applications business uses. Ultimately having a data stream that works and allows a business to have systems to talk to each other that will allow them to ultimately have better data and make better decisions in a more real-time fashion. The way we kind of look at it is looking at the accounting software as kind of that hub of information and interacting with data from bank accounts, CM payroll, POS, whatever systems you're using. What's great with accounting is that's already the kind of a data trove from a financial perspective, and using that as a connecting point to connect other information allows that to work. And not only do that, but then also have other systems connect with each other as well. So there's a way now to have this kind of hub of information and have that all information talk and work with each other. And really, it's a way to have real-time data flows, allowing a complete financial picture to make decisions. 5 years ago, before we really had cloud-based accounting and other cloud-based technologies here in the States, a lot of that data flow, a lot of that activity, it wasn't done in real-time fashion. So, your accountant may have, done a month-end close, and it was at that point they're recording all the entries and making sure everything's in there, and not something that's done throughout the month, or where activity happens throughout the month, which ultimately allows a better decision making to happen. Instead of being on a more historical basis, we can be more now in a future focused basis, and that ultimately allows for much better decisions. So I want to give an example here. This is not a real company, but kind of look at an example of how a company would kind of implement the connected web and that tech stack in their business to make sense. So TechBit is a software development company here based in Chicago. They use QuickBooks Desktop, but now want to harness the power of the cloud to have their back-end processes work in real time. So if TechBit were looking at this and saying, okay, what do I need to do to implement the needs of my business? We want to look at that kind of step by step and have them look at all the things that would work and interact and connect with each other to have a better system in place, so they can make better decisions. So let's start here with an account system. We love Xero here at Lance CPA Group, but this could be QuickBooks Online as well. So TechBit starts using Xero, a cloud-based account application to handle their accounting duties. They like it because they can access it wherever they go, and no longer are their accounting records tethered to a desktop computer in the office, or do they have to worry about file control when they send their accounting records to their accountant. This is kind of their hub base. This allows them to get that information when they need it. TechBit then integrates their bank account with Chase and Xero to get that real-time flow of transactions in their accounting software. Again, we're not waiting until a month end to put that information in, or to verify, source activity. It's being done on a daily basis. TechBit then uses Harvest, the cloud-based time tracking and invoicing tool, to track the developer's time and create invoices out to their clients based on that track time. Harvest integrates with Xero so that any invoices created in Harvest automatically get recorded to Xero, and this saves double entry work and ensure that Xero is up to date. Particularly here, with Harvest being a tool for capturing revenue, this is a vital tool to have in place to manage that revenue, so they can make, again, better decisions and have that information at their fingertips. TechBit also has employees that incur a number of expenses that need to be reimbursed, from sales associates having lunch with a prospect to developers obtaining software subscriptions. TechBit uses Expensify for expense reports. Each employee can submit their expense reports via a mobile app, and TechBit can repay employees directly from the app via ACH payments. Expensify integrates directly with Xero. Expense reports are created in Expensify directly flow to Xero when bills are approved. Expenses are recorded to the correct expense accounts and accounted for appropriately. So these transactions that are incurred, no longer are we handling them in one spot and then have to re-record it in our accounting system, or go into Chase and make payments from there. We can integrate that and have it done in one spot and have the information flow out to where it needs to flow. TechBit uses Gusto to pay its employees, which is a cloud-based payroll platform. Gusto makes payroll seamless with a powerful interface that allows TechBit to pay its employees, track vacation and sick time, provide 401k and health benefits, and keep track of HR documents in one place. Employees have a portal where they can check their pay stubs and their accrued sick time balance wherever they are. And because Gusto integrates to Xero, that means when payroll is processed, the account transactions automatically show up in Xero, and there's no additional work that needs to be done. When TechBit needs to pay its bills or get paid electronically from the invoice it sends out, it uses Bill.com. Any bills TechBit receives, it scans in the Bill.com, which with OCR technology will grab the details from the bill and create the accounts payable entry, which it syncs into Xero and gets recorded as a bill. Bill.com will also read invoices in Xero created by Harvest, and TechBit can set up ACH receipts from its clients so money goes straight to the bank account. So now, not only are we integrating this with Xero, we're also integrating this with other software you were using to, again, have a full kind of connected tech stack and connected financial web. When TechBit is tight on cash and needs some short-term cash or upcoming bills, it can use Fundbox to obtain the cash it needs. Fundbox integrates with Xero and will make lending decisions based on what it sees in Xero within a matter of an hour. So they don't need to go the traditional route and go to banks. When they need to get some working capital, they can use apps that integrate directly with their software to make those decisions and make that more real-time basis. And then to ensure that they don't run into cash flow issues again, TechBit uses Futurely to perform forecasts and cash flow projections. Futurely integrates with Xero so that bill projections are a snap, and so they can compare their forecasts to actual results. Again, making for a better business that is more future focused and looking back at prior results and being historically minded. And then finally, TechBit works with Receivable Group to handle their accounting and make sure everything's in order, because TechBit uses a connected web of apps with Xero as the hub. Receivable Group can log in from anywhere at any time to record transactions in the right place, make sure integrations are working as they should, reconcile their accounts, update forecasts, pay bills, and send out invoices and provide financial reporting so that TechBit's financial world is in order and they can grow their business with confidence that they have a partner in Receivable Group that can help and direct them along the way. So this is an example of a tech stack that would work for this particular business. Now, they may have other applications they may use, but these would be some core applications they would use to manage the business that would help them. And now that they're connected and used together, they don't have to worry about making sure information goes from one system to another or is recorded in all the places it needs to be recorded. It's all done through integrations and automatic activity that occurs. And not only does, we kind of show this here as a Xero as the hub, but you could also, have Expensify integrated with Harvest. And so expense reports that need to be reimbursed by clients flow into those invoices created in Harvest. Or, like I said, we have, the invoices we create in Harvest can be shown in Bill.com, and we can collect payments from our clients electronically. They're, shorter than a period of time. Those accounts receivable stay out. So there are ways to connect these softwares with each other in different ways and configurations to best manage and best suit the business. So then with TechBit, using Xero and Receivable Group, they're able to really manage their business better and make for a better business overall. So looking at what's in your tech stack and what makes the most sense. So we're going to talk through some best practices as well as some applications that we use and like that fit in some of these categories. Again, there are a lot of people will have different applications they prefer over another. That's fine. We just kind of want to show the ones that we like and the ones that we think work the best with each other. So some best practices, so things to kind of think about when we first start out or look at this. One, all these applications should be cloud-based. The way technology is going and developing, having systems that are desktop-based or are kind of separately hosted don't tend to work as well. It's not to say they can't be used, but it's harder for them to get updates, or if issues arise, they're harder to deal with. With cloud-based applications, it's easier to access that information, which is a key part of having your technology in place, is the ease of access to get that information out and be usable. And because they're cloud-based, they're constantly being updated. So we don't have to run updates or reinstall software. All that's happening and updated in real time, which makes for a better cloud system and a better connected web. Use the tools that make sense for your business. I think there can be some times there's this kind of silver or shiny object syndrome, where you see this latest and greatest piece of technology. Oh, let's use this. This would be perfect. But reality, it doesn't fit your business well. It's not meant for your business, or trying to use and adapt it for your business takes some of the benefits out of that software. So we want to use tools that make sense for your business. If you're a retail shop and you have customers and you have a POS system, you want that system to not only make sense for your business, but be something that's usable by those that are using it. So employees that will be reading up transactions and customers that are interacting with the payment side of things. those considerations need to be kind of thought out before you take a system or software and say, well, yes, let's implement this. There has to be kind of this buy-in across the board. Don't use two systems when one will do. Again, that kind of gets to the shiny object syndrome. You may find one system that's great and does a lot of things, and then there's this other system that is, does some other things, but it does a lot of things that are similar. And so we don't want to put in a bunch of systems that do similar things, because now we're, have more systems in place, which, could cause more issues down the line. And so we want to make sure that our systems are kind of consolidated and that they're doing what they should be doing and are working to the best of their ability and what they're meant to do. And so, where we've seen this in play is, there'll be, companies that will use like Stripe for credit card processing, but also PayPal, and they're doing credit card processing through there. And then we have now two flows of credit card processing when the pricing and things aren't different, and that can lead to confusion, or trying to trace back when someone got who paid and when did they pay. Not knowing that they paid in one system, not the other, that can cause issues. So find those systems and use that one, and don't use other systems that are doing duplicate efforts. Make sure ultimately that your applications talk to each other. So some of the benefit, and really this kind of connected web benefit, is that systems will talk to each other and they integrate. And ideally that the systems integrate directly. It is what is kind of the best case scenario. There are some, systems that will kind of bridge the gap, like a Zapier or if this then that. And those are fine when there's no other way to really make that integration work. But when we want systems that will direct integrate with each other. And a lot of systems now have that open API that allow that to happen. But if we're trying to build our tech stack, we have systems that aren't talking to each other. That just causes us now to have to either duplicate information, which opens us up for potential errors and issues. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So again, we want to make sure our applications talk to each other. And then one thing that I think when people get their system set up and they don't think about is to regularly test integrations. Make sure that when we have two systems that are integrated, that they're actually pulling that information over and are talking to each other. And where we're seeing that be a problem is we've seen companies set up those integrations, think they're working fine, and then they go back and look, and the integration broke down a month and a half ago, and the data that they thought was coming through wasn't, and they were making decisions based on ultimately an incomplete set of data. So make sure that those integrations are regularly tested and work. When we do that with our clients, we usually do that on a monthly basis. Make sure that, hey, all the information that is in, Harvest, for instance, if Harvest says that there is, we have $75,000 in bills outstanding, I want to go into Zero and make sure that I see those same $75,000 worth of bills. And if I don't, then I know something is amiss. And so I make sure that integration is tested and that it works. And ultimately, and we have biases obviously in this, but work with an accountant who understands your tools. So if you have a system in place or tools in place that your accountant or other advisors that you're working with don't understand or don't know how they work, that ends up being can cause problems, either in the aspect of those that accountant or advisor may not be able to help you when things go amiss, or when the integration stops working, or things like that. So working with an accountant that understands your tools and knows how those systems work is important. So we're going to go through some different tools. We kind of broke them down into different groups and buckets here of what they're useful for. And again, this gets kind of that one, use one system and not use two. So first we can have the accounting tools. So this is going to be your general ledger, your payroll, financial reporting, forecasting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and expense reporting. Those are all kind of that one bucket of, these are really payroll, or these are really kind of more accounting driven needs. The next group is going to be your sales group. So your CRMs, proposal softwares, point of sale, and inventory e-commerce. So things that are really driven by the sales aspect of the business. And then we get to the productivity apps. So this will be workflow, time tracking, general operations, basic systems, information repositories. And so we're going to go through some of these and talk through ones that we like in these particular categories, and kind of things to look for and watch for. So in the general ledger category, there's only kind of four big ones out there: cloud-based systems, Xero, QuickBooks Online, Wave, and FreshBooks. The one we prefer of those four is Xero, just because it works really well. The technology behind it, it is really smooth, and it's kind of leaps and bounds ahead of the others. But what all those four are, they're cloud-based, and they kind of serve different functions too. Wave and FreshBooks are more geared towards the one-person consultant shop. They're not going to be ones they would use where you're selling goods. So it'd be more for service-based businesses, smaller freelancers, that sort of thing. Wave is a free software, which obviously has its benefits, particularly for smaller businesses that are starting out, or the ones that are transferring as a side business and want to limit the expenses. So that's always a good option. FreshBooks is really known for its invoicing side of it, so some of its reporting aspects aren't as great, and getting information out is not as good, but their invoicing is pretty powerful, and has some nice features there too. But we were out of those four, we like Xero. QBO is QuickBooks Online. Those Xero and QuickBooks Online are kind of the two kind of more full service accounting softwares for the small business. And of those two, we prefer Xero, but we have clients that use QuickBooks Online and they're happy with it as well. And that's really, again, picking that system is really going to be one of the more the key systems that you choose, just because it ends up working as that hub for other systems. And so to the extent that, there is a invoicing software or a payment software or a point of sale software that you love, and it doesn't work with one of these accounting softwares, like that would be where I would say, okay, well, if that's a software that's really core to our business that we want to make sure that our accounting software fits with that. And to the extent it doesn't, we want to switch that over. When it comes to payroll, there are really kind of two big options. One is Gusto, which is a full-blown payroll HR software. Again, cloud-based, easy to use. Employees on it really like it because they have the ability to see past pay stubs, and all their kind of HR documents are all kind of centrally reposited there. So if they ever need to get information or things like that, it's all there. And really what makes Gusto kind of heads and tails above other ones is its support that it has. So if issues go awry, which in payroll world, there's always issues, typically with state taxing authorities not getting information appropriately or applying it to the wrong accounts. You want someone or a software there that allows you to be able to have those problems fixed without a bunch of work on your own end. So we really like Gusto. The GL systems, Xero, QuickBooks Online, and Wave also have their payroll functions, which are good as well. So again, it's kind of what your needs are and what makes the most sense. Gusto is going to be more full-blown, whereas the one like Xero and QuickBooks Online and Wave's payroll are going to be pretty basic as far as what they can do and what they don't do. So again, kind of looking at what makes the most sense for your business is picking out that right system. And also looking at kind of the long-term aspects as well. So where a Xero payroll may be fine for now, it may not be fine in 2 years when you're going to have 20 employees and you want to manage all your benefits in one spot. So you kind of look at that long term, and in that case, I would almost recommend saying, hey, let's go with Gusto to begin with, even though they may be more muscle than you need right now, just because we really don't have to switch systems over in the short term when we outgrow them. Especially if we know we're going to outgrow them sooner rather than later. And then in the financial reporting aspect, the one we use and like the most is called Futurely. It's a forecasting and projection software, but it also allows us to do KPI and reporting out there that is kind of really custom and tailored to what information we're really trying to get out of the system. Another great one that we started playing around with is called Microsoft Power BI. The BI stands for Business Intelligence. And what really makes Power BI an interesting tool to use is it allows you to connect disparate systems with each other. So maybe I wanted, if I had a business that did better when, it was sunny and 75 degrees outside versus cloudy and 65 degrees. I may want to have my reporting from zero, compared with weather trends reports from, Weather Underground or Weather Channel. And I can do that in Power BI and takes, information that I wouldn't necessarily want to compare with each other. Or wouldn't think to compare with each other, but then compare them and put them together and get results from that. And so the Microsoft Power BI is really kind of the first business intelligence tool that's really developed more for the smaller business, even though it's used for bigger businesses as well. It allows the small business to really harness that kind of technology in a way that they weren't before. And because it's cloud-based and because it interacts with other cloud-based softwares, allows us to take a bunch of different data sets and put them together and make decisions based off it. On the accounts receivable side, first is kind of looking at the sales invoicing aspect. So how do we get invoices, send that out to our clients? So like we had Harvest before, again, FreshBooks has a really powerful one. And then the GL systems, QuickBooks, Xero have their sales and invoicing. So kind of depending on the level of detail or what type of invoicing or sales activity you use, really will kind of dictate that. So if your invoicing is pretty simple, basic, straightforward, a Xero, QuickBooks, FreshBooks would work. But if yours is detailed, relies on time entries and things like that, that's where Harvest would come in and shine and work a little bit better. And then for more of a kind of enterprise-wide, Excel is a good software as well, and that not only manages invoicing, but it does kind of does more of a more practice management. As its core, but it does invoice as a key feature, and then we'll then integrate into Xero or QuickBooks Online to push that data down into there. So that's that kind of first, sending out the invoice, creating the sale, but now we need to get paid from it. So we need to get software that works and makes the most sense here. So from a payment perspective, Rerun is actually software we use. It works really great when you have recurring income or recurring activity. So a client signs up for a 12-month membership or things like that, and having them be able to charge that same amount on the same date without having to gather that payment information each time. That's where a software like Rerun will shine. Rerun's also great for ACH payments. So if you want to get payments via ACH, it's a great tool. Bill.com does the same thing. And then Stripe and PayPal are more for kind of the credit card processing or the direct connection processing, with PayPal where you're moving money between general accounts there. And then finally, within it, it's kind of that collection or the management of accounts receivable. So a software like Invoice Sherpa also does payments, but it really kind of shines in looking at, what the, if I have invoices that are past due 15 days, I want automatic email sent out, reminding the, customer that they have a payment due, give them the options to pay, things like that. So setting up software like that, or some Armomatic does the same thing as well. Are good softwares if you're looking at, ways to kind of help with collection aspects. On the AP side, billing, so getting the data from your bills. So when vendors send you bills or things like that, getting that data into your account system. Receipt Bank, HubDoc are great softwares, entry lists, all use OCR technology. Or you can, if you want to be a little bit more manual, you could go into your GL system like Xero, QuickBooks Online, manually enter that information. But systems like, Receipt Bank, HubDoc, entry lists allow that kind of more automation in that process. So you have bills, things like that, sent to a specific email address provided by those companies. They see that bill, they OCR it, they set it up for approval, and then that gets pushed into your GL system. And so that, one, automates the activity, but two, ultimately allows, for a more seamless system of getting that data in. And where that's really important for accounts payable or small business kind of fall behind with that is they'll get bills in, but they won't throw that into their accounting software. And so when they look at cash flows or kind of see where they stand, they're missing that kind of core aspect of, okay, well, we know we owe these vendors $10,000, but that's not in our system. We don't see that. Becomes kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we've seen businesses where they forget that they have these bills, or they don't put them in the system, and they think they have more cash than they actually do. So having that information automated and pushed into your system is really important, and these softwares will do that. And ultimately, again, it's making those payments. Bill.coms are great, particularly especially if you don't have a bank that has a good online banking and bill pay platform. Bill.com kind of fills that gap for you. Another software that's starting to do that same thing, similar process, is called Pluto, and it's the same idea of making these payments electronically and done in a way that automates that and it makes it a little bit more seamless. And then ultimately expense reporting, we talked about Expensify before in the demonstration with TechBit, but really they're kind of our go-to software when it comes to expense reporting. They work really well, and then more importantly, it's a system that it's easy for employees to buy into and use because it sits on their phone. They can snap pictures of receipts. It's not, expense reporting doesn't become this hassle or thing that now takes a lot of time, or it's just saying, okay, it builds up and finally you're hounding your employee to get that submitted. It's something that they can do automatically right when they make, they spend the money, they snap the receipt or picture, it goes into expense report, and then it ultimately gets set up for reimbursement to them. When it comes to the sales side of things, CRMs are pretty key softwares. This not only is a way to kind of manage your contacts, but it also allows you to kind of see how you've interacted with those contacts, particularly if you've integrated your email or other softwares in there. So they're good tools to do that, as well as in the sales kind of pipeline process. Most of these CRMs have that built in there where we can say, okay, here's our potential, clients we have or potential sales we have upcoming. We know what that pipeline is. We know how to manage that. So here's some of the ones we like. Insightly, Capsule, Highrise, Pipedrive. All those are cloud-based. They all integrate in with accounting softwares, as well as they're pretty straightforward and easy to use. Particularly if this is a software that needs to be used by many people in the company, you want that, again, to have that buy-in. I think one of the key issues that businesses face when they bring in technology to be used is there's not that buy-in across the board of people who are going to be using it. And so, having a software that, a sales associate, can easily use and will use is important. And then when it comes to proposals, again, we want things that are integrated, not only with our CRM. So when we create a proposal, we're creating that deal flow into our CRM, but it also can be integrated into our accounting software when we need to shoot off that invoice. We've already got that details and informations there. So there are two that we like, Proposify. Over there, I'll search through here. Proposify and Cooler are kind of similar in how they create proposals. You kind of have a custom set of data and information that you may use for most of your proposals, and then you can customize based off that, so you can save that detailed information in there. Whereas Practice Ignition is more built on the idea of a engagement letter process. So particularly in service-based industries, this works pretty well. Where you don't necessarily need to have a huge proposal and kind of selling your company. You've already done that. You're just now trying to get people to sign on the dotted line and provide payment details and things like that. And Practice Ignition is a good tool for that, to do that piece. So point of sale, a couple of pointers, because I think this is one that we get the most questions on, and where there are the most amount of issues is typically in the point of sale software. So one, there needs to be a decision on, do we integrate this or not integrate this? And I know this kind of is counterintuitive to this whole idea of the connected web and our discussion about that before. But there needs to be an idea of, do we want to integrate this in? And the reason for that is, a point of sale software can create a lot of data And we may not want all that data to flow through to our accounting system. And depending on the systems and the way it integrates with our accounting system or with other software, there may not be a way to stem that flow of information which really results in us putting a lot of information into our other softwares that doesn't need to be there. So it needs to be like a question of, are we going to integrate or not integrate? If we do not integrate and we have a point of sale system in place, typically how then we record sales is either in some sort of batch manual process or based on the deposits we get in, particularly if we're more credit card based and all of our deposits are coming via credit card. It may be easier to avoid and not integrate, but again, that needs to be kind of a decision that's made based on the system used and what we're ultimately trying to get out of that into our accounting or other software. If we do decide to integrate, we want to send information in an individual, so transaction by transaction by transaction basis, or in a batch format in the daily. All right, we have 200 transactions. Here's the kind of the totals of that. With our brewery clients, a lot of them have tap rooms. And they don't necessarily want to see that, $7, transaction on an individual basis. They really care more about all right, we had, a total of $3,000 worth of sales today, and it was in these different categories. And so that's where the batch reporting comes through. But if we need that individual data, or if we don't have as many transactions and we prefer that individual data to flow through, then we want to make sure we set it up that way. If we are, selling goods, we need to know what our integrations are. We also want to make sure that our point of sale can integrate not only with our accounting, but with our inventory and e-commerce platforms. So finding that software, particularly in that, if you're a retail shop and you have a lot of different goods out there that we want to know, if when I record that sale in my POS system, that I'm now integrated with my inventory system that now reduces my stock count by 1. Or if I have e-commerce, a place where that's both a brick and mortar shop and e-commerce shop, that decrease of that one sale item in my brick and mortar store would also decrease in my e-commerce store. So I'm not selling items on the e-commerce platform that I've already sold in my retail store. And further, in our point of sale system, how does that integrate with our payment flow? You have some POS systems that are just the system itself, and you need to have a separate credit card processor or other things like that in place. So we want to know if that is the case, where we have to integrate a separate payment system in, how that works, and ultimately how does that flow through to other systems that we're trying to work with. Ultimately, we try to argue for simplicity in this. So we like systems where everything is together, and we're not trying to cobble 3 different systems together to kind of make up our point of sale. So again, this gets to the don't use 2 systems when one can do. So the more we can keep this simple and straightforward, the easier it's going to be across the board. Not just from an accounting perspective, but also from a management perspective as well. So some of the systems we like or ones we prefer are really, it comes down to Square and Shopify. Both are simple systems. Shopify is great, particularly if you have an e-commerce side of your house that you want to kind of capture as well. That does a really nice job kind of melding in the e-commerce and the brick and mortar together in one system. Square is great just from the simplicity of it. Being able to take a system like with Square and run transactions on your smartphone or on your iPad, and not having to buy a bunch of other hardware systems, but keeping that hardware kind of simplified. That's where Square really shines as well. And there are a lot of systems that are like Square or like Shopify out there. But we really like those because they really make the job simple. They integrate everything that we needed to integrate in. And we're able to kind of control the flow of activity into ultimately our accounting software or other softwares we need to use. Inventory side, inventory really is going to kind of depend on what you're trying to capture. So this is going to be different from the company that buys raw materials and manufactures and then sells finished goods. So the ones that buy your more retail shops where buy your inventory from a wholesaler and then you're reselling at your store. So dealer inventory unleashed really allow for that kind of raw material, work in progress, finished inventory. Trade Gecko is great from the aspect again of doing that raw material, work in progress, finished inventory, but also having a nice system that integrates for e-commerce as well. And then Ecos is a one system that's more geared towards the breweries. It's a brewery management software, but really inside it has a nice inventory management process. Again, it allows us to do, move things from raw materials to work in progress to finished goods, but ultimately then take that information and push it to our accounting system. So, the inventory in a brewery where we have, these, inventory items that have, shorter shelf lives or things that we have to buy further in advance, it's helpful to have that system that specializes in that. And then from e-commerce perspective, Shopify is great. It's a great software in that we can easily integrate that into our website, but then also have it as a POS system and also easily integrate that into our inventory and accounting softwares as well. Again, Square is good. WooCommerce, if you're using WordPress and want an e-commerce system that easily integrates into WordPress, WooCommerce is a good one to use as well. And then finally, get into our kind of productivity suite items. When it comes to workflow, companies' workflows or things like that are going to be in kind of two different buckets. One's going to be more project-based. It has particular steps. They're going to be custom to each project, and it ends, and then it's done. Versus something that's more recurring, where we do the same set of steps either each week or each day or each month. So kind of the ones we like are Basecamp and Jetpack Workflow. And for those particular types of information or types of projects we're trying to do. There are a bunch of other ones out there. Ultimately, when you look at a workflow software, it needs to fit your business. If it doesn't, it's very hard to try to kind of, retrofit that system to be something that works for your business when it's not designed for that. Time tracking T-Sheets is a great one. Its integrations work really well. Particularly, using time tracking when we need to use for payroll and having it integrated into payroll software is pretty key, and not having to retype in time or make mistakes there. We like T-Sheets. Deputy is another good one, particularly if you're a retail-based shop. That one works pretty well because it has some more tools in place that work well for retail-based establishments like scheduling and things like that. General operations. So, these are your kind of your office productivity suites, Google Apps, Microsoft Office, having a place to store documents, Dropbox and Box. Those are kind of core systems I don't think people really think of as systems that are in their tech stack because they're so ubiquitous and they're things that you use on a daily basis or use on a pretty consistent basis. But having those systems and know how they work are important because, like a Google Apps, for instance, can integrate with your accounting software, integrate with your CRM, and integrate with other things that allow you now to kind of move data in areas, particularly when it comes to email or things like that. So having a, understanding, what kind of general operations, stuff on where we store documents, how do we create documents, things like that. It's important to know how those work and how they work with each other, and not just going to keep those in a box or kind of forget about those in our building up our tech stack. And ultimately, another one that I don't think companies think of is kind of information repositories. So how do we, communicate internally? How do we, have, data or things that we get that's kind of this learned knowledge documented? So software we love for that is Basecamp. It's a way for us to really kind of keep all of our communication information in one spot and have that there. Particularly for us, with our clients, we have a Basecamp for each client, and all of our information, all that kind of head knowledge that we learn throughout the process of working with our clients, we keep in there, just so then if someone gets sick or is on vacation, someone else can step in and all that data and information is there, and they don't have to There doesn't have to be this big training session on that. All that information is recorded, and it's all there for the next person to use. So that's a little bit about different tech stack elements or softwares that are out there and how they work and what we like. I think it only makes sense for us to kind of talk through our tech stack and what tech we use. Because we've kind of had to go through and make these decisions on what makes the most sense, and we've evolved and changed systems over time based on what makes how our business has grown and what fits our business at the right time. So going through these really quickly, for accounting we use Xero. So all of our accounting, our invoicing, everything is done through the Xero platform for us. We just really like how that system works and functions, and we love using it with our clients, and we also love using it internally as well. Payroll, we use Gusto. Again, we're big proponents of that. We really like what they can do. Through payroll, we have a 401k policy in our company that's integrated. It makes the 401k management and custodial part really easy. We also keep all of our hiring documents, W-4s, I-9s, things like that in there. So that we always have access to that information. We use Futurely for forecasting. So when we're doing forecasting, cash flow projections and things for our business, we use that software because it's able to tap right into Xero, pull that information through. We can run forecast actual, see where our forecasts were there or fell short. And so that's really helpful for us. Again, like I said, invoicing for Xero. For payments, we use Rerun for kind of our ACH or recurrent payment platform, and for our one-time stuff where we need a credit card for, we use Stripe, which is integrated through Xero in our invoice. And so for kind of one-time projects that need to be paid via credit cards, that's all used there and integrated. AP Xero. We use Expensify for our expense report and expense reimbursement process in the company. For CRM, we use Highrise. And part of the reason for doing that, it's the same company that does Basecamp does Highrise, and so there are similar kind of formats and features and things we like there. One nice little tool in Highrise as a way to kind of broadcast emails. So versus kind of like a MailChimp email where it looks kind of formulated and straightforward, their kind of email blast function is really kind of designed to be more like a standard email. So it's got a nice tool there if we need to, email our clients that says someone's gone on vacation or to let them know about, future events. It's a great tool to use for that. For proposal, we actually use Google Slides. We have used Proposify and Quiller and things like that, but we like being able to customize and do things and set that all up in Google Slides. So again, that's where our kind of general operations software and using Google Apps allows us to utilize functions in there for other pieces in our business. Workflow, we use Jetpack Workflow. We use T-Sheets for time tracking. We're big proponents of the Google Apps system in our company. We also use the software for ShareFile for sharing documents outside the company. So keeping client information safe allows us, that's why we use ShareFile. And then we use our information repository for Basecamp. And so all of our internal communication, chats, things like that happen in there, as well as kind of our brain dumps of information or specific process or features we need to know about the work that we're doing is all housed in there. Everyone has access and is able to get that information when they need it. It's also helped us kind of cut back on the email side of things. So we're not emailing internally with each other. All of our conversation is done in Basecamp, and it is, in different, in the different individual Basecamps for each client or for company-wide. It allows us to have, again, that, context around that information as well. So it's not just general chat that's being, spewed all over the place, but it's in different buckets and silos. So we have to recall that information. It's all there for us. So that's a little bit of our tech stack. Any questions? Feel free to throw those in the chat box. Be happy to answer those. We'll leave those up for a minute here to get any questions you have. I know it's a lot of information to flow through. Ultimately, when you are deciding on your tech stack, I think going back to our best practices, making sure it's the systems that work for you. Make sure you have buy-in is a key thing. That systems don't work and not everyone's using them. And so to that extent, if you're trying to implement a software, it kind of makes sense to have a champion of that software internally. that kind of helps push along those folks that aren't using it as well, or trying to use other systems, or things like that. Having that champion to kind of spur that conversation along, and ask those questions is an important thing to have. So that is, one thing to consider. Well, okay, we have a question. Are there fees for Bill.com? Yes. So they have fees depending on what module you use. So they can do AR and AP. So if you want just one of the two systems, it's a little less expensive. There's also a fee per users. Again, depending on what users you have, dictates whether there's a fee for that or not. And then they have fees for if you're making ACH payments or cutting physical checks out of that system. So there's fees for that too. So if you look at Bill.com and go to their prices, you can kind of see how it's structured. Again, Bill.com works great when you don't have a good online bill pay system with your bank. If you use one of the bigger banks like Chase or Bank of America, where there is that, Bill.com may not even be that necessary, or in some circumstances, your bank is actually using Bill.com in the background. Even though it's got their label over it, it's actually that software, so it doesn't make sense to redeploy Bill.com when your bank is actually using that internally. So like I know PNC uses Bill.com, even though when you log into PNC's bill pay, it looks like PNC, it's Bill.com system underneath it. So but that's a good question. And all those softwares we've talked about, there are fees associated with it. We try to choose softwares that aren't high on fees, just because this can all add up real quickly. And there's even softwares out there that help you manage the cost of your softwares, which in some respects is a little counterproductive if you're paying for that software. But you do need to watch out for the costs and all this stuff, that you don't just add in a bunch of softwares and now you have this large software expense each month, particularly if you're not fully utilizing those softwares. If there's no other questions, my contact information is here, our office information, phone number, email. Feel free to email me, ask me questions, give us a call. Come visit us at our office in Chicago. We're here and available to help you in helping assess what kind of technology makes the most sense for your business. Whether a particular software is better than another in your particular circumstances. So please feel free to reach out to us. Again, our next webinar is going to be September 13th at noon Central again, and we're going to talk about tax planning made simple. So understanding what goes into tax planning, particularly for your business. We'll also talk about individual tax planning as well, because in some circumstances they're going to be tied together, and understanding some of the tools and levers we can pull. And ultimately knowing that tax planning needs to be heavy on the planning part. It's not something you do when it comes around the tax time and you do your tax returns, because at that point there's really limits on what can be done or not done after the fact. Tax planning is really kind of done in the future focused. It's really necessary that you have systems in place from an accounting perspective that allow you to do that, so you can make better tax planning decisions. So that's going to be our next webinar, Tax Planning Made Simple. Again, thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you again next month.